Oh, we on?
Yeah, you're on.
Countdown. We're live.
You're live.
Oh, cool. Very good. So, welcome to today's garden class. So today it's on fall color. So, what can you plant now that shows really well? I put together like 10 collections that can be planted now that look really good. I thought I'd go over those. But before I do that, I'm going to give you two things that are going to make the biggest difference in your landscape, like in October. Welcome, good to see you. So two things that I'm doing in my own gardens right now is, one, fertilize, the most important feeding of the entire years right now, and weeding. So let's go over those two things and how to do that effectively. Hey, Mackenzie, you know I forgot aluminum sulfate. Can you give me a bag of that, just because it's so important for the evergreens? So my name's Ken. I'm the owner of the garden center. My daughter's running the board. So you got, I'm second, she's third generation owner of the garden center. So my father-in-law started the garden center back in 1962. And so we're 60 years old this spring, really. And so it's kind of exciting. Still local, yokel, just us, gardening, family kind of thing. I was talking to a friend of mine. He goes, yeah, I've had this job and this job and this job and this job. I'm going, I think I've only had one job. It's pretty much here, and I still love going to work every day. So it's kind of okay. Look what I get to play with every day. And so some things I've learned over the years is we don't have any food in our landscape. There's no food in your soil. You're going to have to fertilize more often than you would other parts of the country. And so that's the most important feeding of the entire year is right now, before Halloween, get food down. So that's what's going to carry you through a harsh winter, possibly, and next spring's growth. It's going to make your biggest difference. Especially important for, thank you, Mackenzie, especially for evergreens. You only get one shot at growing evergreens. It's in the spring. They flush their growth, and that's it for the year. So you kind of want to max out that bud that forms, it's already forming, that will elongate next March and April. So you're using this food now. For fruiting, flowering things in spring, lilacs, forsythia, your apples, pears, cherries, flowering red buds, all the things that bloom in the spring, they're using the food right now for next spring's flower bud. So you want to fertilize now. So let me tell you what to use. Got a couple things. 744 all-purpose plant food. It's organic food. You sling it on the ground. Don't have to work it in. This is kind of a hard thing for you gardeners. You think you got to work the garden so much or it won't work. Just get it on the ground. For the next 3 months, it'll release into the ground, and then slowly the plants can pick those things out. So it's got a lot of sulfur in it, a lot of iron, so it really helps to bring out the most of your garden. So this is for everything. Now, I do make a specialty food if you're really into horticulture, fruiting plants like blackberries, grapes, apples, pears, cherries, apricots, nectarines, all that fruiting stuff. I do make a fruit and vegetable food. It's a little different. It's basically this with a lot of calcium in it. Calcium is what brings out the size, the flavor of fruits. So it just brings out the flavor. So it's special formula just for edible things, but this is for everything else. Lawns, perennials, shade trees, privacy screens, hedgerows, you use this, okay? In addition to this, I would suggest, Kenzie got me, aluminum sulfate for your silver-colored, blue-colored plants. So aluminum is what the plant picks up to create that silver color. So Colorado blue spruce, this is what creates the blue. So over time, the plants will use that up and it just slowly turns to green. I just remember it being like 2 years ago, a much better color. Why is it off color? Or just the very ends are silver and everything else is green. Why is that? Well, this is what put this onto those plants like Arizona cypress, your Vanderwolf pines, your Wichita blue junipers, things that are kind of that silver and blue color, Arizona color. This is what will bring that color out. So just kind of an insider tip that really makes a difference in how your yard looks compared to everyone else's. This is going to be like, it'll glow at night almost. This is what does that. It's not a food itself. This is a mineral. The plant will actually pick up, put into the bud this winter. It'll actually elongate to make it very silvery blue. So that's an addition. I think this is wasted on fruit trees. I think it's wasted on shade trees. I think really it's your evergreens that really benefit. I guess the other one that you see it on is your acid-loving things like rhododendrons, azaleas, hydrangeas. They would benefit from this too. So, but those are the obscure. Mostly we have evergreens here that you kind of want to make it look good. We've seen a lot of damage. That windstorm we had earlier in the week, it was ferocious. We're getting lots of calls from all over the county. My tree blew over. Lots of tree blew over, cracked, split, just kind of got damaged. Lean it back up if you can. Like we had someone yesterday with a willow tree that was this big laying over on the side. There's no way to lift that thing back up. It's just chainsaw paint at this point. So you're going to start over probably, and that's usually an indication of a irrigation issue. It wasn't watered correctly, deep enough. It's real shallow, frequent watering, and so it has shallow roots. And so windstorm comes like that, falls right over. So you've got to change your irrigation probably. If you can stand it back up, I had a pawpaw tree, kind of exotic, weird, funky. I was back there for the birds. I don't really use the fruits, but the fruits lie on the ground and the birds love it, so I can attract more birds. It's laying over. I can stand that one back up and stake it off and then fertilize it. And then what I'm doing with mine, if it's stressed at all, it has brown leaves, spotted leaves, it's just not perfect, I'm giving it humic too. So this is humic acid. Is that showing up on camera? Can they see that okay? Humic acid. So it's a granular form. It looks like coffee grounds. That's what it looks like. It's not that, but if you boil down a compost pile to its last elements, what you get is humic acid. This feeds the soil, welcome. This feeds the soil so that the roots actually want to root into the ground farther, stronger, deeper, better. And so if that tree's fallen over, you've broken some roots. You're going to want to set it back up and then reform those roots back, and this will help encourage more root growth. If you have a landscape that's brand new, you just want it to root out faster, to grow bigger next spring, humic acid. So this is in addition to, it's kind of like a mineral. It's in addition to your actual all-purpose plant food. Start with the food. That's no brainer. And then if you need to, you can add some of these other things. So it's kind of what we're doing, what we're suggesting for folks. And there's so many phone calls. I just know it wreaked havoc on the pines. It just had an issue. So yeah.
On the size of the bed to use, is this good for just this year, or if we've got stuff left over, can we use it next year?
Good question. So fertilizers, your question was, if I have some left over, can I store it in the garage or the garden shed and use it next spring? Yes, you can. It's good until it gets wet. Once moisture hits it, starts to activate. So I would say keep it dry, use it next year. It won't go as far as you think it does. So a bag will cover about 2,000 square feet. That helps you do some math on it, that kind of stuff. So, and you're fertilizing, like on trees, you're fertilizing not at the trunk, except on new plants, but most established plants, you're fertilizing drip lines. So on the trunk, these are the branches, you're halfway out. This is where all the feeder roots are. That's called the drip line. That's where you want to focus your feeding, all these minerals. That's where you want to put it. The trunk really has no feeder roots. It has these big anchoring roots, hopefully, that hold the tree upright, but the bark on it's so thick it can't absorb any nutrients, really. Those roots are further out of the drip line. So place it out here, and you'll get better uptake, better usage, yeah.
just got a new yard.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes, they put the underlayment on it for
Yeah.
weed control. Will that stuff soak through the roots?
Yeah, so she's got weed fabric for you folks online. We know you're there. We'd like you to be here, but we're glad that you've tuned in to watch the class as well. So what you do with that underlayment is usually they'll put weed fabric, is what they call it, and they'll put rock on top of that. This stuff will go, water and food will go through the fabric, but weeds can't get up through it. So that's the beauty of it. The exception would be plastics. Plastics are kind of old school. We don't use that anymore. The fabrics plastics don't do that. Nothing goes through it this way or that way. There we try to open up the plastic. But weed fabric, that's the ideal thing to use. Goes right through it. Just put it on top of the rock. Don't even think about trying to work it in. So it'll be fine. Okay, good question. Are we all set on food? And then weeding, you've got an opportunity for the welcome folks. You've got an opportunity right now to kill weeds. In a month, you won't. So the temperatures are right where you can knock down, you can use the sprays, and it's highly effective. As those temperatures drop below 50 degrees, your sprays are totally, don't waste your time. In fact, almost, today's high is going to be 68. Tonight's low is going to be in the 40s. It's even Roundup really is not very effective at these temperatures. So you'll spray it, it'll turn yellow, and it comes right back into vengeance. So that's a summer weed killer. We sell one that's called Decimate, and I think I brought it. Did I bring one up here? Decimate. Quick lesson on weed killers. So I am actively trying to get rid of my weeds right now, because I know I'm down to weeks, days left. And I want to go into winter clean. Don't want the weeds to keep growing. I want them dead. So I want to go clean. So I'm actively trying to spray more than I would really other times of the year, because I know I'm heading into winter, but I don't have a chance to kill them again. So I'm trying to get ahead of it. I mean, weeds are terrible this year. It's amazing how much they've grown. I mean, dandelions are like this big around. It's crazy. So what to do? Roundup, probably stop using that. First of all, it causes cancer, tumors, and all kinds of crazy stuff. Don't use Roundup. That's my advice for you. I don't sell it just because of that. So we're selling Decimate, which is a competitor to Roundup. This doesn't have cancer. It doesn't cause your third eyeball growing out of your neck kind of stuff. So it's safer. And mainly, it's got a broader weed kill. It's got a broader, for the mountains of Arizona, it kills more types of weeds, and it kills down into the low 40s. So it's going to kill, even in January, it's got a kill factor. It might take a little longer, but it still kills, whereas Roundup, totally ineffective. What I'm doing is, this has like 2 ounces to a gallon of water. So I'll get my 1 gallon sprayer, pumping it up. In addition to this, so mix it the right ratio. If you're seeing a range, so 2 to 3 ounces, go the higher range right now because it's cooler. It's going to take more to kill that weed, whatever it is. And then I'm adding this herbicide extender into the same tank. What this does, this doesn't kill, this is the killer, but a lot of especially the fall weeds have a real waxy leaf to them, they have a wax coat to them. So the killer will beat up and kind of roll off. This keeps that from beating up and rolling off. Or things like horehound, tumbleweeds, some of these really nasty native weeds that we have, they got this texture to the surface, kind of a fuzzy kind of texture. It's a defense so they don't use as much moisture. So they can take on the heat better. Well, the killer will actually float on top of that, and it doesn't penetrate into the surface, so you don't have as good a knockdown. This makes it go right into the cell surface of the weed and obliterates it. Literally within.
How long does it last?
This will last. Well, it kills the weeds. This kills the weeds and the roots and everything.
For about what?
It doesn't affect the soil at all.
Roundup says what, like 3 months or something?
Yeah, if you've got the surfactant to it. If you've got there's a certain type that does that.
Yeah.
This just kills the weeds and keeps them out until the seed comes up again. So it doesn't affect the soil. So you can spray this right at the base of your trees. It's not going to kill the tree, just the weed. You can spray it around roses, herbs, like rosemary, lavender. Not going to affect the plant, just that weed. So I'd be really careful with soil sterilants. There's some that actually affect, nothing can grow in that area for several months, sometimes up to a year. I really don't like using those because they wash down, they go in places you don't want them sometimes. The way our rain hits, it's all at once, and then it starts to pick this stuff up and floats through the yard, and you see some weird things happening. So, yeah.
I bought this mate and I used it. It works like a charm.
Oh, you bought you bought Decimate and it works like a charm. We got a testimonial in the back. Thank you. I'll give you a $20 bill later.
And deer came in the yard after it was dried and everything, and it didn't kill any of my bugs I'd like to get rid of, but.
Should you wear a mask and
So-
astronaut suit and all that stuff?
So it's a killer. So it's a fancy salt basically. I wear long pants. I mean, some common sense. Don't spray in the dog bowl. I mean, some common sense, and I think you're fine. So I don't wear masks and that kind of stuff. Spray in the morning rather than the evening because it's less windy in the morning. In the afternoon, that's when the wind kicks up. So it's basic common sense stuff. So I think you'd be fine. So the lesson here, though, is get ahead of it. You've got till about Halloween. Typically, is our first frost. Average. It'll get chilly at the end of the month. You've got an opportunity, a unique opportunity now that will affect the rest of the winter. So take advantage of it. Yeah.
Organic.
Yeah.
Can I use that Decimate on my vegetable garden, my fruits, that kind of stuff? Can I still grow organically with it?
Yeah. So organic, is it organic? No, it's not organic. So I'm an organic gardener. So for my vegetable area, I just hand weed. What is it? A 4x8 patch. It doesn't take anything. It's the rest of the 2.5 acre that I've got that I'm worried about. So those areas I'll kind of hand pick. So that'll keep it organic. Good question. All right. So that wasn't really related to the class. We can go into the class, but it's so important. I wanted to make sure you know some things you need to do. What I'm doing in my yard, I think it'll help you. We're just friends. Here's some things that I think will help you in your backyard too, that kind of stuff. Okay. So today we've got fall color. What are some things that have color long term? And some things, we were so mild here that you can actually have flowering color year round. So it's not like the Midwest where we get this 8-foot frost line. Why anyone would live where there's an 8-foot frost line, I don't know. Actually, a lot of those folks, they winter down here. They summer up there. You see the Minnesota, Wisconsin, Alaska folks, they're down here for the summer, for the winter.
Bemidji.
They go back, yeah. And then it's weird. We get this rotation where the Phoenix folks, they summer up here. You know, you get the winter folks and summer folks. There's this migration, this change that happens. So the Scottsdale, Tucson, Palm Spring folks, they're getting ready. They're going, okay, as soon as it stays below, 50 degrees, I'm out of here. And they go to their winter homes down there. It's kind of this weird thing that happens. It's because we're so mild, and so we're kind of like the perfect 4-season climate. It really does work out. And so, so what I put together were some hardcore native stuff. I thought I'd start with the sumacs because they're starting to turn color. They're in color all around the county. You're seeing them everywhere. The maples are just starting to show. Another week, they'll be in full red or full orange, full color. Aspens at the high country, they're starting to turn. So in another 2 weeks, we'll be in full aspen mode here. So, but this one here, this is called sumac. This is one of my favorite sumacs. Again, there's several native varieties of sumacs. This is called tiger eye. Now its normal color is gold, like the eye of a tiger. So it's bright gold. It's really pretty. I put it in areas where it's really hot, sunny. You got this dark rock, dark areas. It brightens up the area. It only grows about this big, so about hip high, whereas most sumacs get ginormous. They get easily 10, 12, 15 feet tall. This one stays short. And then its fall color looks like it's in fall color right now. It's kind of the leading indicator. Sumacs always start it, then it just kind of floats through and kind of a domino effect kind of goes through all your landscape colors. The last plant to turn in the fall of the year, Bradford, your ornamental pears, Bradford pears, that's usually for the first part of December or so. So now through December is our technical fall season. where you actually see a lot of different colors, plants going into color. This one actually is deciduous. It'll lose its leaves, so it probably has another 2-3 weeks. By Halloween, it'll be naked. It's got this real pretty fall, kind of like a buck's antler kind of texture to it. It's got this velvet to it, which makes it very draw hardy. This one, I'll irrigate, I'll put it on my drip system for maybe a year, just until I get it established, get it rooted, get it up to size, and then I cut it off with all care. I never water it again. It's truly, truly a native plant. With that being said, it can be a little happy in your yard. Sometimes it tends to run. So it has these runners that come up. So if it pops up where you want it, great. If it pops up where you don't want it, well, it's really easy to pop out of the ground and go, no, you're not growing there. So that's it. So you kind of shovel and pop it out. So sumac, tiger eye sumac, really a native drought hardy thing. This is
It's
one.
like a tree, but it kind of creeps its height.
This is another shrub thing that is in color right now. This is a wild native. So it's got these white flowers and the tassels, you see like this, all on the same bush. It's called a patchy plume. Again, it gets up about this big, truly, truly a native plant. Again, this is one I'll water, put it on the drip system until it gets established, until I get up to size that I want it to be at, and then I never water it again. So patchy plume is truly a native. Not so much fall color, but it tends to keep blooming a long time. So this one and Cliff Rose are in bloom right now, and they will stay in bloom until our first frost, and then it will tend to go deciduous. And it kind of has this big bushy mangy look to it, kind of big full look, with or without foliage. But April through October, it's got these flowers and these tassels to it, which is kind of unusual, unique, different. You don't see it, this won't grow really anywhere else except here. This Central Highlands, it loves growing right here, but Apache plum, a great kind of long-lasting native color. And I put it together with this, probably ought to, well, I'll see if I can put them together, but this is red sedge. Sedge is a grass, basically. It'll take heavy water or real dry climates, but it looks really good with things like, I'll put them in containers. You put them with this kind of stuff, and it just kind of goes together. So white mums or white Shasta daisies, white really, it plays off all the other colors together. So sedge is not one that some folks think is dead. No, it actually grows red. This is its color when it grows out of the ground. It's a perennial, goes back year after year, just tough as nails. This is fully mature. It's not going to get any bigger than this. It can get fuller, won't get any taller. So it goes well in raised beds, containers, right at the edge of the patio. We want some softer things, but not to get too big. That's where you put this. It goes back for years. I've got one that's probably 5-7 years old. This old, I don't know how old it is. It's nice and bushy. And in the spring, I'll just whack it back, fertilize it. It comes back with all new red color to it. So great little plant. This is maybe not known. This one is probably the most famous of all the native grasses. This is Maiden Grass. It just does this. It can reseed, comes up in the yard sometimes, but it's just this nice bushy. This is fully mature. This is as big as it's going to get. It has a long bloom cycle, kind of blows in the wind. It just is a nice little, I don't think the deer eat this. So you said you had deer. They don't tend to bother this one. They might bed down in it. So I don't know if they'll eat it down to the ground. So if you got a whole herd of deer, sometimes they'll kind of bed down in it, kind of make it all lay down, does that kind of stuff.
The foliage all around it.
Yeah, they can. This is red yucca, probably the #1 selling of all the yuccas. Tough, it's really tough. Again, get it started, you can count on it to bloom. Has a very long bloom cycle, May through really now, starting to kind of stop to bloom. They get these big seed pods on it. They're kind of pretty. If they're in a container up on the front door, sometimes I'll spray paint them red because they're kind of pretty, kind of festive, or hang ornaments on it like festive holiday balls. I don't know. You can have fun with it. The lesson here, though, is when it's done blooming, you can take this and cut it right back to here, as close to the foliage as you can, but leave the rest of the foliage. It is an evergreen native. So just prune this flower stalk off, and that's it. Okay, I've seen a lot of blunders with some landscapers. What they're thinking sometimes, they'll treat it like a grass, whack it right off, and it takes a year to recover from that. It can take more than a year for that to recover. These are not meant to be cut. They're just meant to be evergreen, cut back the stalk. Also, fertilizing these. They would benefit from that fertilizing, like we started out, the all-purpose food, but the way yuccas work, they've got all this foliage, it brings water to the heart of the plant, so it helps it go through drought cycles. Well, it also does that with fertilizer. Sometimes you can fertilize it. You don't want fertilizer on the foliage of this plant, especially, because it'll bring it right to the heart, and sometimes you'll kill out the heart. So I've seen damage, just rookie mistakes. I kind of go through it, put it by hand, just underneath the foliage, and you'll get better. It'll work better for you. Just a few mistakes I see people make. What else we got? Here's a mix. I was going with Virginia Creeper. This is in color right now all around town. This again, it's not like Sumac. It announces autumn. So this is a native vine or ground cover. You'll see it growing up in the Bradshaws, Mingus Mountains, underneath the junipers and oaks. You just see it crawling on the ground. Animals do not bother it. They don't like the taste. Tough native plant. So once you get it established, you can go by itself. I find it tends to be a little more, tends to be prettier if you put it on an irrigation system. You treat it like one of your trees. You water it once a week. That's enough. This will trail up like trellises, or you can plant it, take these stakes off and spread it out. Creep in between all the rocks as a ground cover, even under junipers, that kind of stuff. It'll crawl underneath that and kind of give you a nice mat. It is deciduous. That is, it's got red color, and then it will drop its foliage. And then it's just this nice pattern structure to it. So truly a native plant. Yep.
Does it have any value for erosion control?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, does it have value for erosion control? Probably one of the better plants for erosion, because as it trails, it'll stay and then it roots, trails, roots. So kind of like an ivy in that respect, but less invasive and much less water use. So it takes full sun, takes full shade. I notice in the shade, it doesn't get as bright red. It has more kind of a muted orange to yellows. In the sun, bright red colors. So this is really good.
How far is it going to creep?
As far as you want it to.
So it's
There is no limit.
It's controllable?
It's easily controllable, yeah. So I brought this one. This is Crepe Myrtle. These kind of go together. Full sun, full sun. You'll see them in the same yards often. I brought it mainly because a lot of questions about, okay, it's been in bloom for 3 months. It's a summer bloomer, loves the summer. It's starting to form these seed pods. Should I take these off? Should I leave them on? That's always a question. So I brought it to you just to go, you can either leave them on or you can take them off. Your choice. It makes no difference to the plant. So sometimes in the winter, I'll kind of rub them off. It is deciduous. It's going to lose its leaves. It's got a bright orange, not orange, a gold, kind of aspen gold color to the foliage. This plant will get up pretty big. So about chest high to head high or so, if you let it go. But it'll just bloom a long time. Then it puts these seed pods on. Again, it's by the house. Spray paint the seeds red. Have fun with it. It doesn't care. Or trim them off if it bugs you. So I kind of like them. I think they're kind of pretty in the winter. So something to look at, gives some structure. So the Crepe Myrtles, that's kind of how you treat them. We do not grow, for the rookies, we do not grow Crepe Myrtle trees. And here's the reason why. About every 10 to 15 years, we get this sub-zero winter, brutal, just it gets cold. And it stays cold for like a week, 10 days to 2 weeks. And that's enough to take a Crepe Myrtle back to the ground. And so it will reset it to the ground. It'll come back, it doesn't kill it. It comes back as a bush. So you'll see Crepe Myrtle bushes. You don't really see a lot of trees that are very old. You'll see some, you're going, oh, just wait. We're ready for a really cold winter, and that's what will reset it back to the ground. So we really don't sell Crepe Myrtle trees here just because we know that's a disservice to our customers, because we know it's going to reset. Same thing with figs. In Phoenix, figs grow like trees. Up here they don't. The winter resets them back to ground level. They come back with a vengeance. They'll get easily this big, but you'll mainly see shrubs, not trees. That's the same way. With this also, I gave it this guy. I'm just going, these are companion plants. Full sun, they look good together. This is a gold sword yucca. It's equally as hardy as the red yuccas. It just has this bright color to it. So this I find does really well with, these mocha colored rocks that we spread around the yard. They get really hot. Some plants don't like that. This loves that. And then it gives you a good contrast with that dark color. So the gold against the dark, the mochas, the chocolates, those darker rocks. I can't believe even purple volcanic rock is coming back into style. This would look really good against that. So this also gets a white flower to it. But really, it's not so much a flower. It's really this gold colors, which you're really after. Super hardy, goes down to like minus, some crazy cold number, like minus 10 degrees or so. I put it in that red pot because I actually put mine in a pot. I've got this same plant in my back patio. It's maybe 6 hours of sun or so, so it's kind of not quite enough sun. It's a kind of a darker area of my garden, so I have a real pretty pot. I put it in the pot, and it just shines. Winter, summer, it just always looks good. So this is one you'll see in the front of a lot of style magazines, architecture magazine, on the patios. You'll see it in a bowl, you'll see it on pillars. This is the one that they're using for that kind of style. It grows really well up here. Okay, here I brought probably the #1 growing native grass. This is called Brahma Grass. It grows throughout all the valley, all the washes. You'll see it everywhere. So, and it's in bloom right now. So I brought it mainly because this is how mature it gets. This is a fully mature plant. This is how big it's going to get. These seed pods will stay on there for a very long time. So I'll keep this. You should cut it back in the winter sometime, usually in February, March is when I'll cut it back. And here's my cue. It looks good, even though it's going to brown, get that straw color to it. It will keep this form. The seed heads will stay there and float until our first couple of heavy snows. Then it starts to look kind of, gets beat up, gets laid over, gets soggy looking. Sometimes if it's by my hot tub, the seeds will start to float when I'm in there, kind of floating into the hot tub. Go, okay, that's my cue. Time for that thing to go. I don't want it in the filters. Let's cut it back. But that's usually January, February, somewhere in there. And then I'll kind of whack it back to within, 6, 7 inches, whatever's comfortable. Fertilize it and come back fresh next spring. You should do that for all of your grasses, except bear grass. That native one that grows out in the valley areas, there's a green, wild green grass that grows up, has a white flower on it right now. That one is an evergreen grass. It's not truly a grass. It's a native, we call it bear grass, like B-E-A-R, like bear grass. That one, you just take the flower stalks off like a yucca, and you leave the foliage out. All the others, including pampas grass, that real big one that's got that great big white head on it right now, that one should be taken down to, not the ground, but close to it. You'll see some growth pattern. It has a curlicue, this matted area. Cut it back to there, fertilize it, you'll get better growth next spring. Yeah, otherwise you'll get this brown stalks, green stalks growing through it. It looks off. If you cut it back, it looks fresh, new, vibrant Kelly green every spring. It'll look better and it will bloom better for you next summer and fall. Okay. So Brahma grass, and I brought that with these two guys. This is a native wildflower. See the name variety on that. This is Coreopsis. Oh, uptick Coreopsis. So there's a lot of varieties of Coreopsis. We're trying to bring in more because there's such a great wildflower. This will actually reseed throughout the yard. It does really, really well. Deer can eat the flowers sometimes, so sometimes not. It's on the deer resistant list, but I find in drought stuff, they tend to nibble on it. And when there's other stuff they'd rather eat, they don't. So it kind of varies. But it just grows and does this for a very long time. This is one that benefits. When it's done blooming, just pinch this flower off. So this is a spin flower, and it will reset another flower. And I'll do that right through, because this will start blooming into May, June, and it will continue to bloom through October. then it will finally reset, truly a perennial. It'll rest underground and then come back fresh from the ground. So I'll whack it off with a lawnmower, weed whacker, hedger or something. It's usually in February, March. I'll whack it all, clean everything up, fertilize, takes off again. What I do for my gardens, because I'm a bird gardener, starting now, here's the lesson. I'll start leaving the flowers on and letting them go to seed. And I'll let the birds that kind of winter over with me, I'll let them have access to the seed of this plant through winter. That's another reason I tend to I'll prune this one backwards. I'll prune it back towards the middle of March, sometime in March. I'll kind of prune it back then. And by then, other things are starting to bloom. By then, the rosemaries are starting to bloom. You're starting to see indications of spring. Well, then I'll go ahead and cut it back because then my birds probably have other things to start eating at that point. But I use it as a seed source for it. So, and you can do the same. It really does work. I'll do that with my echinaceas, gaillardias, some of my bigger flowers. I'll leave them right now. I just stop deadheading, stop pinching those spent flowers. I'll let them all go to seed. That'll really, their flowers, your birds will love the flowers. This is one you see come in only this time of year and in the spring. This is Dusty Miller. It's an annual flower. Annuals generally mean grows for a year and then dies out. This one thinks it's a perennial. I've got some that are very old in my yard. They have a yellow flower that comes on them, but it does this year round. Animals don't bother it. Pack rats, squirrels, deer, rabbits do not like the taste of it. It's got a texture to it that gets caught in their throat. They kind of go,
You see that color in the winter?
This stays this color year round. Yep, year round. It just has a yellow flower to it sometimes, but it goes really well with things like these. Just brings the color out. So I put it in this group going, these things look good together. So you can put them in the same kind of raised bed gardens, that kind of stuff. No,
What's that called again, please?
Dusty Miller.
Just a minute.
Yeah. So I don't have it in the summer, don't have it in the winter really.
How much
It's
water?
going to be a spring and fall kind of
Water a
thing.
lot, or?
Yeah, I would treat it like I would any of my other flowers, like this.
Yeah.
Treat them all the same. So a couple times a week, probably enough.
Okay.
Yeah, good questions. Yeah, I'm trying to match flower colors, but in addition, as a designer, I'm always trying to think texture colors. What color foundation rocks do you have? What contrast for that? So when you look at it, you go, oh, look, it's alive. I can't believe how good this looks. And they all grow together, companion plants. So I'm just sharing some of those, my designer's eye, how would I put things together, helping you that way. Okay, so here's kind of three of my favorites. So I had mentioned these, again, perennial flowers. You gotta have mums. Okay, mums and autumn go together. There's lots of colors, orange, red, purple, there are all kinds of colors, but mums are good. The lesson here is there's two kinds of mums. There are greenhouse grown mums. These are the ones you see in the grocery store. These are floral grade mums. Usually the flower's a little bit larger, but they don't come back. They're not perennial. So they're made to be showy now and thrown away at the end of the season. We only sell here at Waters Garden Center perennial flowers. So we are having ones that are outgrown out in fields. So they're exposed to the elements. So they are going to go through and they'll actually die back and come have this straw color to them. And then you'll whack them off. And next spring, they're going to come back starting March, usually starting in February. They'll start growing green. They'll start growing again for you. And they come back year after year. Your mums should be able to grow for decades, not just for 3 months and you throw them away. So look at, for gardeners, you probably want perennial mums that are grown outdoors, not greenhouse mums for floral kind of thing. So it's a caveat, but just know there's different types. Same with rosemary. I mean, rosemary is not just rosemary. There's a lot of Phoenix varieties that take the heat down there, but they don't take our cold. You really want a variety that takes, you want a mountain variety. Out of all the 50 varieties, there's maybe 5 that goes up here and takes our cold. So you want to make sure you're planting the right one. That's where you can get tricked sometimes. You go, no, I'm not a very good gardener. No, you're fine. You were sold the wrong plant. That shouldn't have been grown up here. That's that box store, you know. I've got 50 stores. send 100 of those to every one of my stores, they don't care about zones and that kind of stuff. So they're not looking as much closely, but they're just looking at terms. So kind of just know that, okay? So, yeah.
The rosemary here, that grows up here, can we use that in our food?
Yeah, you can use it in your foods, just great. Yeah, blooms twice. So it blooms in March, in the fall. So this is probably one of my favorite perennials right now. Today, I have a favorite every season, it seems like. This is kind of my newest favorite. This is called Rainbow Ascot Euphorbia. Now, Euphorbia is related to poinsettias. Poinsettias are a euphorbia, which means when you break the stems, that milky white sap comes out. That's really a sign of euphorbia, which means animals don't like the taste. So they're not going to eat any euphorbias because that milk is a defense the plant puts into itself to go, rabbits, stay away. You're not going to like this. I'm going to make your belly sick. You're not going to like this. So, but this is an evergreen. It looks like this year round. Gets up about this tall, about 3 feet, kind of knee high, kind of vase shaped like this, has this color. And then when it blooms in the spring, it's got this really funky, like Dr. Seuss looking. The flower is the same color as the foliage, but disc shaped. It's really interesting how it forms. When it's done blooming, I'll whack off the seed heads, and then it just has more of this. So it's just a great little plant. It's unusual to have perennials be evergreen. Normally they reset and rest underground. They need that rest period. This one doesn't need that. So it's super drought hardy. This one you can actually blunder and it will still grow. You treat it like, not a native, although I've got several that I treat like that and they still grow. So they're just amazing little plants. But they go with things like this. This is Echinacea. Your grandparents grew like purple Echinacea. We're starting to introduce a lot more colors like red sombrero, these pure whites, super unusual to see white Echinacea. They all form a seed head. This is one that benefits from pinching when it's done. It'll form another flower right after that. But I'm letting all of my Echinaceas, no matter the color, I'm letting them all go to seed right now through October.
Is that an herb?
This is, it's an herb, yeah, it is. I don't know why it's an herb. It's probably why it's got some medicinal
It does.
properties to it.
Think about it.
It's not so much culinary, but definitely medicinal. It's very much that way.
Good for sore throats.
Is that it? Good. Good for
And
sore
colds.
throats. And colds. Also, sore throat and colds go together. But there you go. You can also, it's also pretty. Butterflies love these. Animals don't seem to eat them. Birds love the seed source. So it's got a lot of positives here. And it will reseed to the yard. It'll actually come up as a true wildflower
What time of year do you plant that?
right now.
Okay.
And then this one I brought, again, these are all companion plants. This is called hyssop. I prefer hyssop over Russian sage. Russian sage is that purple flowery. Did I bring one of those over this? This can get kind of weedy. It is a top seller.
That's not lavender.
So it's not lavender, it's Russian sage. Again, great plant for here. Does really well. But it can be kind of aggressive. It tends to spread, gets seedy, gets weedy, tends to spread, gets mangy looking after a few. This plant is not meant to live more than 5-7 years.
Bees love it.
Then it should be torn up. So it just tends to, yeah, bees do like it. Hummingbirds will go after it. Yeah, bumblebees especially like this. But a good plant, I have several of these in my yard. I prefer this one because it's longer lived and less weedy and more hummingbirds like this. So this gets, again, similar in size, gets up about like this tall, vase shaped. You got a few more color options than just purple. And just, it doesn't, it's equally as hardy, but not as weedy and seedy as Russian sage may be. So good choice, companion to them. All right. So these guys, this group, these go together. There you go. That's what we're trying to do. This is lavender. So I brought lavender. This is a platinum blonde. It's a lighter color. It's got a gold variegation to it. Lavenders I brought mainly as a lesson for you going, don't prune these back. Leave them nice and bushy. They should be evergreen. And the bushier they are, the hardier they are. So they'll actually insulate the heart of the plant better. So keep them up. And then be careful with this. If you're going to kill lavender, it will be this time of year. So So if these get overwatered, they'll rot and just keel over and die. So they're really drought hardy. They're really sensitive to too much, to roots that are too wet. And so especially if you got this in like a plastic pot, things that don't breathe as well, this will be, you got to really throttle back some of the watering now because it's cooling down at night. So that's one thing, just a mistake I've seen people make. They cut it back in winter, they're exposed to cold, they die, and then they overwater them going into this winter cycle and they die. So just put them out there in the hot sun, think bad thoughts to them, like die, like just dry out. Take a blow dryer to them, kick dirt at them, they like that. They don't like a lot of water. That's the one thing to watch. Okay, where am I at? Right, let's go with these before I forget them. So I brought these. There's a whole series. We have 3 really growing seasons here. We've got spring, and I define that as March and April. First part of May, where plants can take bright days, but it can get chilly and cold at night. So we can actually have frost through the first part of May. Very typical. So you need plants that can take that. That's not zinnias, that's not geraniums, it's things like this. Then there's the summer season. That's really mid-May through now. That's our typical growing season. These are plants that need to take the heat. It's going to be dry, it can be windy, it might rain, it might not. We never know. It's got to be able to take that. But there's definitely no frost. Then we're coming into the entire new planting season now, which is another spring plant. It's like a cold season. It's like that March and April season is now again. So this is when you can plant lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, lettuce, spinach, Brussels sprouts. They all love that bright day, cold night. And if the frost comes, a little bit of snow, the flavor actually comes out better in those plants. They actually don't like the summer. They tend to bolt and go into flower. They go off flavor on us. Things like parsley, rosemary, lavenders, they like this time of year. It's a good time to plant them, including beets. Now this is an edible beet, but I actually plant these for the foliage. It's such a pretty flower or foliage color to it. And then when the grandkids come over to visit me in the holidays, they're going, Pops, let's go out and pick some stuff. I'm like, there's nothing to pick. There's no tomatoes. The fun's over. You can go pick beets in the middle. You can get potatoes in December, January. You can pick those things out and go, whoa, you are such a good gardener. I know, yeah. But it's mainly for the flower color. This is ornamental kale. You can do any kind of kale. Edible kale and ornamental kale can both be planted right now, and it will bloom and survive for you right through winter. And they go well with things like pansies and violas. This is like that same. This guy, I find people make a mistake with this. They've been in bloom for so long. They come in May and they get the last crop. And pansies don't like summer. They like the cold. They want it to be freezing every night. They do better with that. So now's the time you plant that. It will bloom for you literally through next June, and then it will just vaporize in the summer heat. So plant it at the right season. Work with the environment, not against it, with this kind of flower, and you'll do better. Yeah, question?
So the kale and cabbage, I like stock to plant with those. Will those go through the winter?
Yeah, stalks. I've got stalks down there. That's one that's real fragrant. It's a companion to this, does really well. Yeah, they'll go through the winter. Stalk will bloom to the end of the year, and then it kind of takes a break, kind of like snapdragons. They'll bloom to the end of the year, and then they kind of go, oh, I'm done. It's too cold. They're just not growing enough, but they're not. You got enough antifreeze in the structure of the plant. They don't freeze. They just stay there. And then it's usually just after Valentine's, mid-February, they start to grow again. So we're past that cold. They're starting to get really nice days at that point.
But they would keep the flower?
Stalks won't keep the flower. They'll have a seed head to them. You'll cut the seed head off and keep the foliage.
So how long do you have the flower?
Through the end of the year. They'll bloom through the end of the year. Yeah.
Okay.
This will put on the entrances to like hotels, commercial, because it's big and showy. It'll actually bolt into flowers, and the flowers are very fragrant as you come into the entrance of a business. It's got this, you don't even know where it's coming from. You're going, oh, it smells so good here. This has got to be a great business. We're using this time of year for that reason. Plus, it's It's pretty. Just come on, that's as pretty as it gets. You put it with pansies, that just looks good together. So you can trade. What I'm doing right now is, as my tomatoes fade, I am trying to get those things out of the ground just right away. And I'm putting my winter vegetables in. So lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, all the things you'll see down there now. Your cucumbers are coming to an end. They're going to stop producing. As soon as they do, rip them out of the ground and put in something that you can put. You can harvest broccoli for Christmas dinner. You can have a salad for Thanksgiving right from the garden. Very doable up here because we're so lucky. Okay. Fresh kale, oh my gosh. I'm a juicer. I like juicing, fresh juice in the morning. This morning it was tomato juice because I got so many tomatoes. I know what to do with them all. Juice, you can't juice enough. It's a pineapple in there, some bee pollen, and some kale. And oh my gosh, that is as healthy as you can get for antioxidants, that kind of stuff. Beets, same way. The foliage, not just the root, but the beets. That color is very good for you as far as antioxidants go. And they blend really well. Okay. Number one perennial ever. You know what that is? Periwinkle or vinca. This is a weed. Be careful, don't put it just anywhere. Usually I'll plant this out where the irrigation just misses it. And where the truck can run over it, keep it in check. You kind of want to put it where it gets abused or it will take over. You put this in the middle of your flower bed. Within 2 seasons, you're going to have, this is all you're going to have left. It'll choke out everything. It's got a blue flower to it, kind of like that. It's got a size of 1/4 of 5 petals. It's an evergreen. It's a great ground cover, good for erosion control. So very good for that, but it can get out of hand. So it kind of, and it's hard to control sometimes. So it's not for just any place. I tend to use this at the front of my containers, at the front edge, because I get these long tendrils, soften the front of a large container, and I'll put things like, I don't know, like, why did I pick the heaviest thing? There we go. Put that at the front edge and it'll kind of trail over. This will be the big thing. It'll go up. So we'll see if the viola survived. This is Johnny Jump Ups or violas. These are related to pansies, just smaller. So this one tends to be more prolific as far as flowers go. So it has more flowers, but they're smaller. This one has less flowers, but bigger. It's a mammoth pansy. So they are related. I find this one can reseed. Tends to go through summer a little bit better than this one. This is not going to go through summer. This one can. So it just depends. This can reseed and come back other places. So your grandparents called them Johnny Jump Ups. We call them violas anymore. And farming stock. This is one of those fall plants. You can't buy this in the spring. It's not available because it's barely coming up. It's a green thing. But late summer through autumn, this is when you plant stalks or phlox. Excuse me. Now you got me. Phlox. There's tall phlox and creepy phlox. It's a great little perennial flower for here. And then a couple. We're all close to the end. What are we doing on time? Just take a look. Oh, right on time. Perfect. Yeah, I'm going to nail this thing. I'll land it right on time. I brought this one, my Californians. This is called Heavenly Bamboo. It's actually Nandina, but the Californians call it Heavenly Bamboo. It's evergreen, and it looks like this year-round. Now, in the sun, it turns bright red. In the shade, it stays green like this. So it will grow in any place you have it. Animals don't eat this. It looks delicious. I mean, I want some ranch dressing. Just kind of try it out. But animals don't bother. They don't like it. We're trying to introduce more varieties of this because it's so hardy up here. So Domestica is the standard one. It gets really big. That's where it gets its name. Heavenly Bamboo. It gets bamboo stalks to it. Can be a little too big for most places. This is Tuscan Flame. It's about this big. Now it's a little more controlled without any maintenance. Let's get this big and stay that way. Low care. I would call it drought hardy. Once it gets rooted out, you can't kill it. It's just really tough. We got Gulfstream and then Harbor Dwarf. There's just different sizes you can plant. They all have the same foliage. They all have this bright red. The fall through the winter, basically. And then in the summer, it's actively growing. It gets this new color. Then here in another 2 to 3 weeks, it'll start to turn red. You'll see these bright red shrubs around that are evergreen, holds foliage, but not evergreen, it's ever red through the winter, and they'll green back up in the summer. This one I brought because it's so unusual. This is St. John's wort. Again, you don't find this except for late summer through fall. This is a truly drought hardy plant. Starting to show some color to it. So in another week, it'll be bright yellow. And I brought it because it's been in bloom with these fluorescent yellow flowers to it, fluorescent pink, fluorescent, very bright colored flowers. And then it puts on these seed heads. The interesting thing about St. John's wort is it'll actually lose its foliage, but the seed heads stay on there. So it actually has this really interesting character to it up the garden where it's got these seed heads on it that the birds will like. And then it will come back fresh. Usually in March, I'll cut it back to the ground and it comes back fresh again for you. It just blooms. Again, it loves summer and fall, but it has these interesting characteristics to it in the winter. And then last three, I brought these just for native stuff, true natives. This is Elaeagnus silverberry, just call it silverberry. It's an evergreen. It's up above head high, kind of wider than that. I think this is a preferred hedge or evergreen shrub than red tip Photinia. There's one that gets new growth is all red. It's more popular than this, but it also has way more issues. It's mildew right now like crazy. It has this white powder to it. It's getting on it. Deer eat them. The deer don't eat this. Rabbits don't bother this. Javelina never look at it. Yet it has this nice, beautiful, bright color to it. The native one is actually kind of a blue-gray color to it and has this off. It looks native. We figured out how to breed this gold patterned variegation to it, so now it's much brighter in the landscape. So I use this against my cedar fence down the property line, kind of softens that up so I have this private garden feel. Again, this one is so tough, I'll water it until it gets up to size, then I cap off that irrigation, never gets watered again. A true native evergreen plant. No matter how the drought is, it's truly a native. And it goes with, this is just we are in such good grass country. This is the place for meadow grasses all the way up to the great big pampas grasses. I use this one on the backside of my pond. I just like that blue color, it has that Arizona blue to it. And so it's just super hardy, tends to clump. So it's easy to maintain, but it tends to grow by clumping. So you'll have to take a shovel to it, pop it out to keep it in its boundaries if you want. It has a white head to it, seed head to it. So, but mine are probably up about this tall hip high, maybe just a little shy of hip high. But it looks really good against the pond, that dark, elusive kind of pond depth that it has. It's only 3 feet deep, but it looks like it goes down to like China. But this blue kind of brings that color out, gives it that illusion of it's a wild place to be, and it's designed and pretty. So blue lime grass. But all the grasses, this is your season for grasses. You have more choices now. It's a good time to plant them. But blue lime, and it goes with that. And of course, Manzanita. This is our native. If you're going to kill this, it'll be from heavy soils. I've killed 5. I can't grow it in my backyard. It's just too heavy clay. North slope, heavy clay, up at 5,700 foot level. I went with junipers instead because I can't kill those. So this is one where if I were to plant this, I would put it on a slate mound. I'd leave maybe this much of the root out of the ground, and then kind of feather the soil down to the ground from there. So I can ensure that at least that much of the roots can breathe, even in a heavy, wet summer monsoon. Monsoons is what takes them out because it's a heavy, wet. They just root rot. So, but it has that classic red bark, evergreen, the bell-shaped flower the bees love in spring. There's a place for it. So we've got, I think, 3 different sizes. There's the Kinnick ground cover Manzanita. There's Howard McMahon, the regular big one that you see natively. And I think this one's, which one is this? Oh, Panchito. Panchito gets up about this tall. So it's kind of the #1 seller for Manzanitas. So good evergreen plant for here, but all native. Again, I would not put this on irrigation ever. I would keep this, plant it, and I would just water it by hand when I thought about it. Maybe. It's so tough. Okay? Questions?
Yeah.
How'd we do? Oh, that was fast. What did I miss?
I bought a, what do you call it, carpet roses from you guys.
Yeah.
About 8 or 9 of them. They're all
Yeah.
done ready.
Great.
Except for one. The drip system broke. It soaked it like hell. I got
Gotcha.
my hand down it. It's all turned brown.
Yeah.
Am I done? Is it over? Or can I dig it up and re-soil it? Re-cross?
So he'll, just to reiterate for you folks online, he's got a block, a garden of carpet roses, and the irrigation broke and started to saturate this one rose, and it died out in the middle or turned brown. Is there any hope for it? There is hope. Roses are hard to kill. It's worth a try. What I would do is dig it up, add some fresh potting soil underneath it, try to reset it,
Yeah.
maybe even prune it back a little bit. And then I would fertilize the entire bed with all-purpose plant food. In fact, I meant to give you all. Here. I've got 3 handouts. Pretty plants with daisy-like flowers. So I had a PEO group come in. This is a philanthropy, Gals for Philanthropy. And their mascot flowers is daisy. So I wrote this article for them. It's kind of apropos for this class. So I'll give that to you. Since you're brand new to the area, I'll give that one to you. But I'll also send it to you by PDF. You'll have a link to it in your email here by the end of the day. And then I have 9 flowers hummingbirds cannot resist, which are some of these. So we've mentioned some of them, but here's all 9. And then who else? Who's new to the area? This is your first growing season. Anyone else? Really? You've been at so many classes
I
already.
started coming before my house was here, so I was living elsewhere.
And then 4 steps of fertilizing. That, when we started the class, was on fertilizing. Here's the list right here. Here's how you do it. In 1 page, here's what you do, when you do it, what products you use. This is it. So I'll give this to someone on this side. Anyone want a fertilizer? You got it here. And then, would you mind, since I brought, before I give it to you, I'm going to email it to you. I forgot to bring, because I got to get all 3 of these to all of you, right? Otherwise, I'm insulting the folks who feel left out. Give me your email address. And if you could, also write your name, because some of your handwriting, it's really bad. And it's hard to interpret. Sometimes I interpret your email by your name. It just helps me get it in right, so I don't have as many bounce backs. Just give me that, and I'll send all 3 of these to all of you. And online, I think we post those in the comment fields, right, Mackenzie?
Yeah.
So if you want a copy of these 3 things, just give me the quick email, and I'll make sure you get it probably this afternoon. And it'll be real short and sweet. Just here's the links, and it's from our website. You just gotta download it at your leisure. Okay. All right. So those are the handouts. And my question was, what was it again? Did I answer that?
Well, I don't want to bring it back to you
The
guys.
rose. So
Carpet rose is overwhelming.
I think it'll come back because roses are so hard to kill. I would add some soil
Pick
there,
it up.
raise it up.
Well,
Oh, and then what I was going to go for is fertilize the entire flower bed, that rose bed, with the all-purpose food. All of them will appreciate that.
Okay.
But what you had with that rose, where the water hit, some of the roots rotted off. So that's what was causing the damage. You're going to have to regrow some roots, and you could do that with the rose. Your Humic, I would do this for that one especially, but the whole bed. Just do the whole bed with all-purpose food and the Humic,
Mix it together.
and you'll get, just kind of, you don't have to mix it. Just do one, then do the other. It doesn't matter which one. This forms new roots. It's
Okay.
really going to help that one that's kind of got damaged. It'll help root out.
How do you apply it?
By next April, I'll bet you'll never know. I bet it'll be fine. Yeah. You just sprinkle it on the ground. That's all you do. So sprinkle it on the ground.
Another question I have, if you don't mind.
Hold on, let me see if someone else. Anyone else have a
I'm
question?
sorry.
Yeah, then we'll come back.
The red salvia back there?
Yeah.
Does that, no.
Oh, this one. Yeah, I forgot that one.
Will that say evergreen?
So this is called autumn sage. Sorry, I missed this one. It's most famous this time of year. That's the name, autumn sage, or Salvia regia is the Latin name. This is not evergreen.
Okay.
This is going to go deciduous. It'll bloom into November, but eventually it's going to turn gold, foliage will turn gold, and then it'll just will turn twiggy. You actually forget it's even there.
Okay.
Usually it'll start leafing back out in March. It starts going into bloom again in April, so then it blooms right through the season. Hummingbirds absolutely love this plant.
Do you cut it back?
I don't cut mine back.
Okay.
Well, the secret with this, here's some things that have rookie moves. Leave the foliage up on this as much as possible through the harshest part of winter, through February at least, and cut it back towards, it's one of the last things you tend to trim. You want to keep that structure to it. It insulates itself. So it'll keep the heart of that plant from getting as cold.
Okay.
So it won't tend to freeze.
And then how much would you trim it?
I just give it a haircut. I shape it. That's all I do.
Okay.
So right now it's got this wild, getting overgrown look. You almost want it to go dormant because it's just taking over. Then I'll just trim it back to, I don't know, knee-high by. Right now it's like this. I'll take it back and just kind of keep it under control.
And
Fertilize it with all-purpose food and it'll come right back.
when
in
would
the
you
bloom.
trim it?
What's that?
When do you trim it?
March. Trim it in March. That'll really help you with all the stages.
Okay.
So you'll have more success that way.
But you can plant them now?
Oh yeah, plant them now. Yeah, now's the time. That's when you see them because they look so good right now. It's when they look amazing. That's their name, autumn sage.
And
Yeah,
that
great
red one,
question.
how big will it get? Like the other ones?
Hip high, they're all the same.
If,
So autumn sage is kind of like roses. They all get the same size, but really it's the flower color changes. That's it. So, okay, you get your question?
Are you the guy that put your cell phone bothers when you're in your backyard?
So my cell phone, my gardens, I try to not ever invite anyone over that aren't friends or kind of family, because it's my private space. I live in the public eye. And then
the radio.
when I really get stressed out, I just unplug. I leave my cell phone behind and I just lose track of time. It's just a therapy thing for me. It just makes me feel better. So, but yeah, I'm on the radio a lot. I'm kind of all over the place as far as garden content in northern Arizona. I learned long ago, my father-in-law taught me this. He started these classes 60 years ago. If you help people garden smarter, better, they have successes, they'll come back and support you. And that really does work. So we've just been trying to do that. I started the radio show. How many have heard the radio show before? 1, 2, 3, no, 4.
All the time.
Okay, most. We'll get you the number. We'll let you have that.
11:30 a.m.
I do a radio show every weekend and a podcast. So if you're a podcaster, it's the same show, just formatted so you can listen to it whenever you want. I started doing that because we had road construction in 2003, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8. Huge, massive road construction. Pretty much every business went out of business on Iron Springs Road during that whole thing. We survived. Us and Beals across the auto body store. We're the only two that survived. Everyone else died. So I went, okay, people can't get to me. How do I get to people? I started the radio show. And I've just been doing it ever since. It's been almost 20 years.
Hey, one last question.
Yeah.
Burning bush.
Yeah.
Heard that on your show this morning, and but it's not one that would be an evergreen all year round.
Yeah, so burning bush. So his question is, tell me about burning bush. So burning bush is just starting. In another 2 to 3 weeks, it'll be bright flaming red, like burning red, like Moses comes to the burning bush, that kind of red. It's amazing. It grows really, really well here, but it is deciduous. It will lose its leaves in the winter. Now it's got a very interesting structure that if you look closely at the stems, it's got this almost cork-like structure. It's very interesting. You could easily make cuttings and make floral arrangements, that kind of stuff. But it's pretty in the yard too. It gets up about, like this. Most of them are about chest high or so. You can easily trim them down or let them go a little bit more, but that's about the norm for them. But they're very robust. They'll take our sun, they take our dryness, they take the spring winds really well. I do believe that deer will eat them, so maybe not for the deer folks. But out in the other areas, it's a great plant.
Up on your mountain, a lot of wind.
Yeah, it would take the wind just fine. Burning bush is great for that. Yeah, it's green basically spring through summer through autumn. And then it's got this bright red, and then it has this interesting naked deciduous look to it. Yeah, yeah. Anything online, kids?
No,
Okay.
I do have a red patina.
Yeah.
I love, and I have, I forget the, yeah, the it's new. It's like
Okay.
a couple of months old.
Sure.
So now that we're going into the colder season, do
Yeah.
I have to put like mulch around it? Do I fertilize?
Good question. Actually, that's really good. We can touch on that for not just red tip Otinia and pyracantha, but any new landscape,
Okay.
really just any landscape. So a couple things I'm doing right now. So I'm buying my mulch, my manures, my potting soils I'm going to use next spring. I'm buying them right now, at least a couple bags, and I'm throwing them on top of my irrigation box. So that those valves, if you have automatic irrigation, usually that's in the ground. You'll see this box in the ground. You have a lid to it. If that valve, if any one of those breaks, you have to rebuild the entire manifold. You can't just replace one valve. So I've got like 9 valves. I've got 3 different places where they are. So I've got, typically you have 2 to 4 or 5 valves, systems in the ground. I'm throwing a bag on top of that to ensure that does not freeze. No matter how cold we get, that much extra dirt on top of your valve box is going to save you a $500 plumbing bill easily. And so I'm just buying it now. It's insurance. I've never had a break, no matter how cold we get, by doing that. And so just buy it now and put it up on top of that. The other one to watch, some of you have a backflow preventer. Comes up out of the ground, comes over like this, like a brass fitting. Sometimes I'll put a bag over it. So kind of, if your house is a little bit older, they've got this. They've started putting them in the ground. So if that thing freezes, that's a $500 part plus the plumber to make it go. So it's going to cost you a few $100 to get that thing. Don't let it freeze, and it's exposed. So usually you put a bag over it, and that'll take you through the end of the year. But eventually, you're probably going to have to take the water out of that. And what that device does, if there's a drop in pressure from the city water, it prevents your irrigation from getting sucked into the city potable water supply. That's what it does. That's physically what it's meant to do. And so don't let that thing freeze, or it'll cost you dearly. Your plants, we're getting there. Just kind of going through all that. Getting there. Hold on, be patient. Oh my gosh. So you'll engage. I'm kind of giving you more than you bargained for. So for new plants, I do add some shredded bark or premium mulch. 2 to 3 inch layers, as the book says. I'll just put a nice round area. And what it does, it keeps the soil from freezing. It's this freeze-thaw cycle we're going to see here in November, December. That messes with your roots. So as it freezes and thaws, that ground will actually become fluffy. It'll break the root hairs. So it'll keep that from happening. So you keep your root structure intact. Really helpful. And then the other one I can tell you is make sure you fertilize. We covered that one already. So that'll be to you here shortly. How to fertilize. Fertilize everything by the end of the month, especially new things. And then make sure you're watering new plants through the winter. We're going to throttle it back here starting November. So in 3-4 weeks, we'll start watering less, but you still should water at least 2 times per month through winter. That's going to, especially for new plants, it's going to keep them hydrated. We can have some serious dry cycles through winter, and we never know. But typically, as soon as this rain stops, we're not going to see significant moisture until March. March is usually another wet cycle. 2 times a month, just water, deep soak it. If you turn your system off, water by hand. And if we get a heavy snow, if you get some serious, not a skiff of snow, we're talking some serious snow, you can probably cut one of those out. It's just enough to keep them hydrated. If you don't do that, we get what's called winter kill or winter burn. The tops of your red tip Otinia, your pyracanthus will get tinged, will get killed. And so just by watering a couple times a month, it prevents that. So it's a game changer to really help you.
You're talking about that backflow emitter.
Yeah.
In our house, on our exterior faucets, we have one that's like kind of built in.
Yeah.
Should we protect that too?
So no,
Okay.
that's a frost. So she said backflow preventer, but she's also got some
On the exterior.
frost-free outdoor faucets, what that's called. So your
Okay.
stem is actually back in the wall
Yes.
to keep it from freezing. So your heat inside the house keeps that. So all the rest of the water, you don't need to protect that.
Okay.
Now, with that being said, I did have to replace. We went sub-zero. I did have to replace one of those once. Pretty easy to do because it did freeze. It was
We
on a corner
replaced
wall.
one already. It was broken. So-
Yeah. So there, if you've had that, they make a styrofoam kind of cover on it, and that's enough to keep it protected. And then disconnect your hoses. So don't leave them connected because that'll leak water in there. So just disconnect your hose, turn the water off, put that foam cover on. They're like $4.99 True Value.
Yeah.
Very inexpensive. So I'll usually do that by the end of the year or so. I'm in no hurry because I'm still using my water. The
Right.
gardens are beautiful right now. I'm picking tomatoes like crazy. I want to keep that regular water cycle, keep that growth through the end of the month. And then starting in November, I'll throttle back and start watering a little less. I'll probably keep my hoses on until December, just because I'm going to water my container gardens as I need to. But by the new year, I've got all the hoses off and that foam cover on it.
Okay.
And it's insurance. You won't have problems.
Okay.
Yeah, you got a new house too.
7
So you-
years old, so,
Yeah.
but that's still fairly
Yeah.
new.
Quick question. We had aspens in the front yard.
Yeah.
And this past winter they died. So the HOA made us take them out. So now we've got this much root sticking out.
Yeah.
And it's around some river rock with a nice little edge, but now what do we do?
So what do you do with those? So she had some aspens. They died last winter. HOA had them cut them down, but they got the stumps there. What do I do? Can you chip them out? Can you?
My
Take a chase.
question is do we pull the roots out? Can we pull the roots out, plant a new tree? Do we plant something over it?
Yeah.
What's going to grow in that area?
What I would do with that, because if it was a fairly mature tree, it's going to be a lot of work to pick the roots out. I would rather just cut it back to ground level, kind of throw some rocks over it, make it disappear, and I would plant another tree just off center from that. So just not in the same space, just over here, where I'm out of the root zones, so I don't have to dig that thing up. I just plant a new one. Save you a whole lot of headache, whole lot of work, and in a year, it'll make no difference. You'll never know, oh, it's over 3 foot over here, but I wanted it here. You'll never know.
Any
Plant
idea,
another aspen, it'll be fine.
any idea as to why the aspen died?
Yes, it died.
No, I mean,
From
did we
lack
not
of
water it in the springtime?
Yeah,
How
so
did we-
probably, I don't know why it died, but more than likely, like we were in drought for like 3 solid years, like we saw no moisture for 3 years.
Yeah,
Probably it was drought related and it was not watered through the winter. So it
Yeah.
died, that's why it died.
okay.
Now we've had moisture, but this will trick you. So this moisture is here today and it's gone tomorrow, and so people will go, oh, I remember it rained like last month. It last like 3 months ago, and now it's gone all winter. Now we get this real cold weather. That's what takes out trees. So when it's dry, it's a real cold cycle. That's what will kill things. So I'm guessing that's what it was, just in the time frame that you're mentioning. So these are things we can also help you with too. So no more questions because we've gone an hour and 20 minutes. But I'll hang out kind of offline. We got to let our folks online kind of go. Thank you for tuning in, folks. And then I'll just hang as long as you all want to answer questions for you. And you betcha. So hey, thanks for tuning in, you all. And get them kind of tuned out. All right. So where are we at? We are in the broadcast.